Hello everyone, what is going on? Raven here, welcome back to the channel. We've made a decision and some of you have voted that you wanted to see an update on the JonBenet Ramsey case. So here it is. So we're going to be talking about some new information that has been released since November of 2024. Now that has been a couple months ago. However, they have some new information for us. Let's go ahead and get right into this. So first of all, as of November 2024, the Boulder Police Department have released its annual update on the investigation into the JonBenet Ramsey case. Now it has been 28 years since the child has been found deceased inside her home. We're going to go into a recap now and kind of go over all the information that I have. On December 26, 1996, 6-year-old JonBenet was reported missing from her home, located in the 700 block of 15th Street after her family found a ransom note. Mind you, the ransom note is 3 pages long, handwritten. It makes no sense. Patsy Ramsey, her mother, called 911 at 5:52 a.m. frantically telling police that JonBenet had been kidnapped, and she actually used the term, "We have a kidnapping." Her body was later found inside the basement of the home, and an autopsy determined the case of death or strangulation, though one of the investigators from this case have also determined that there has been a serious head injury. Although, with a dramatic head injury as bad as that, there has been no blood found from that in the crime scene. So we're going to get into that a little bit later. JonBenet's murder has never been solved. Despite nearly 3 decades worth of searching, detectives have followed up on more than 21,000 tips and spoken with more than 1,000 people across 19 states. The death of JonBenet was an unspeakable crime, and this tragedy has never left the hearts of the Boulder Police Department. We are committed to following up on every lead, and we are continuing to work with DNA experts and our law enforcement partners around the country until this case has been solved. The investigation will always be a priority to the Boulder Police Department. Now, there has been a little series, a docuseries, released on Netflix about this case. The police did not make any direct reference to this docuseries on Netflix. They refuted a couple statements that were made in the show, including one from John Ramsey, who is JonBenet's father. What we're advocating for, and we have been doing so for the last year or so aggressively, is we know there's 5 or 6 items that were taken from the crime scene, sent into a lab for DNA sampling, and were not sampled. Now this is as of John Ramsey. In their yearly update, Boulder said the assertion that there is viable evidence in leads we are not pursuing is completely false. In the final episode of the docuseries, it also states that the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, or the CBI, assembled a panel of experts to review JonBenet's cold case in 2023. Boulder Police's update emphasized that it was their department, not the CBI, who convened a cold case review panel. The Boulder Police Department has received criticism for its handling of JonBenet's case, including from her family members who were once suspects. In 2022, a petition to Governor Jared Polis asked to transfer evidence away from the Boulder Police Department, allowing a separate agency to investigate the case, which John Ramsey has publicly supported that petition. Nearly 28 years after her poor murder, Boulder police are still looking for answers. The department is asking for anyone with information to contact the detectives. Now, I'm going to go ahead and get into a little bit more of some of the things I have seen over the years. I mentioned number 1 that there was a head injury. There was no blood found at the scene. So that kind of tells me that this happened elsewhere. She had hit her head somewhere else. Blood was cleaned up, and either the parents were never told or the parents were behind it based on that. Now, the assault case where they found unknown male DNA, they said they were trying to follow up on this. I have a few theories on this. Number 1, we all know they went to a Christmas party before this happened. I have a theory that the house that they were at, some of the boys, including Burke, were kind of around her when this happened. They cleared Burke. Burke, the father, and everyone in the Ramsey family has been cleared of this incident. They had been cleared because their DNA was not found on her body or on the door to the room that she was found in. What I want to know is why they did not search into the neighbors and their kids. We all know they went to a party. Why was everyone at the party not investigated? I also want to make point that for JonBenet Ramsey's burial and funeral, they brought a friend of Burke's with them. Like, the parents just let the kid go. Why would you let the kid just fly to another state without you? Why would you just let them go unless you are in on it? Now, we don't know for sure if that is the case. I will mention also, I've seen on YouTube that there have been mediums trying to speak to JonBenet's spirit. If you believe in mediums, let me know, say medium. If you don't, say no. Some of them have said that Patsy Ramsey, who has since died, passed away from cancer since, she's been gone a long time now. Not as long as JonBenet, but she has been gone for a while. It is said that Patsy will not let JonBenet talk to the medium, if you believe those mediums. Other mediums have said that Patsy and JonBenet are talking together, saying that it was a man came into the house, but I'm not necessarily buying that because, again, the head injury. The one detective that claims she knew who did it, right from the moment that they found JonBenet in the basement, and it was the father and the father's friend that searched the basement. She claims she knew who it was. They were all about the fact that it was the father, the mother, the brother. It was proven false. Why did they not search into the people that had been around JonBenet and her family from the entire time? Who helped her father find JonBenet? Who was that friend? Were they at his house for the Christmas party? Originally, in the first video, which I will link somewhere, I thought it could have been the father and or brother. Now I'm starting to think, so my thought has changed over the years. I'm starting to think that wherever they were for that Christmas party was obviously a friend of theirs. JonBenet was hurt at the party, and maybe JonBenet was asked to stay the night. Maybe her and Burke were supposed to stay the night originally, and because they didn't know she was missing because she wasn't in the house. And then maybe after that, the kids all kind of ganged up on her. They hurt her, and there was a lot of blood because, again, head injury. I'm going to take a step away from this for one moment. I have pulled up the Office of the Boulder County Coroner's Office, the autopsy report for JonBenet Ramsey. Number 1 is a ligature strangulation. Circumferential ligature was associated with ligature furrow of neck, abrasions, and petechial hemorrhages in the neck. Petechial hemorrhages, conjunctival surfaces of eyes and skin of face. That's number 1. Number 2, craniocerebral injuries, scalp contusion, linear comminuted fracture of right side of skull, linear pattern of contusions of right cerebral hemisphere, subarachnoid and subdural hemorrhage, small contusions, tips of temporal lobes. That is the first 2 things you're going to see when I'm going to link this I might actually put pictures of the autopsy report in my video here. The second thing that they actually talked about was a severe fracture to the right side of JonBenet's skull. Why would that be unless she has suffered a severe head trauma? But again, the Boulder Police Department never mentioned anything about head trauma, and they just assumed that the parents did it. But why were they not concerned about lack of blood? That's what I want to know. If it is so bad that there is literally fractures on the right side of the skull, there was subarachnoid and subdural hemorrhage in her skull. Where did all that blood go? Okay? So that tells me that she died somewhere else. She was placed in the basement of her family's home afterward. Now, let's continue on. Abrasion contusion of the posterior right shoulder. Abrasions of left lower back and posterior left lower leg. Abrasion and vascular congestion of the, her no-no area of the vaginal mucosa. Ligature of the right wrist. Toxicology study. There was no blood ethanol and no blood drug screen. There were no drugs detected. The body of the 6-year-old female was first seen by me after I was called to an address identified as 755 15th Street in Boulder, Colorado. I arrived at the scene approximately 8 p.m. on 12/26 and entered the house where the descendant's body was located at approximately 8:20. I initially viewed the body in the living room of the house. The descendant was laying on her back on the floor, covered in a blanket by everybody. And she was in a Colorado Avalanche sweatshirt. On removing these two items from the top of the body, the descendant was found to be lying on her back with her arms extended to over her head. The head was turned to the right. A brief examination of the body disclosed a ligature around the neck and a ligature around the right wrist. Also noted was a small area of abrasion of contusion below the right ear on the lateral aspect of the right cheek. A prominent dried abrasion was present on the lower left neck. After examining, I left the residence at approximately 8:30. That is just based on the coroner's first appearance of her. In the external exam, so that means they took her from the home to the coroner's office to do the autopsy. The descendant is clothed in a long-sleeved white knit collarless shirt, the mid-anterior chest area of which contains an embroidered silver star decorated with silver sequins. Tied loosely around the right wrist, overlaying the sleeve of the shirt is a white cord. At the knot, there is a tail end which measures 5.5 inches in length with a frayed end. The other tail of the knot measures 15.5 inches in length and ends in a double loop knot. This end of the cord is also frayed. There are no defects noted in the shirt, but the upper anterior right sleeve contains a dried brown tan stain measuring 2.5 by 1.5 inches, consistent with mucus from the nose or mouth. That means she had to have wiped her face on her shirt, which means she bled ahead of time and she tried to wipe it away. There are long white underwear with an elastic waistband containing a red and blue stripe. The long underwear and urine stained anteriorly over the crotch area and anterior legs. No defects are identified. Beneath the long underwear and white panties are printed rosebuds with the words Wednesday on the elastic waistband. The underwear is urine stained, and in the inner aspect of the crotch are several red areas of staining, measuring up to 0.5 inches in maximum dimension. This is kind of where they kind of get into things like that. So let's continue with evidence of injury. Located just below the right ear of the right angle of the mandible, 1.5 inches below the right external auditory canal, is a 3/8 by 1/4 inch area of rust-colored abrasion. In the lateral aspect of the left lower eyelid of the inner conjunctival surface is a 1 mm maximum dimension petechial hemorrhage. So that means there was hemorrhaging around her eye. There was an hemorrhage that happened. Very fine, less than 1 mm petechial hemorrhages are present on the skin of the upper eyelids bilaterally as well as on the lateral left cheek. On everting the left upper eyelid, there are much smaller, less than 1 mm petechial hemorrhages located on the conjunctival surface. Possible petechial hemorrhages are also seen on the conjunctival surface of the right upper and lower eyelids. But rigor mortis, it says liver mortis, but I'm pretty sure it's supposed to say rigor mortis, on this side of the face makes definite identification difficult. Wrapped around the neck with a double knot in the midline of the posterior neck is a length of white cord similar to that described as being tied around the right wrist. So they use the same material to tie her wrists together over her head as they did to tie her neck. This ligature cord is cut on the right side of the neck and removed. A single black ink mark is placed on the left side of the cut and a double black ink mark on the right side of the cut. So people are saying that the ink marks are from a taser. There has been evidence that proves that it was a taser that was used on her to probably make her quiet. The posterior knot is left intact. Extending from the knot in the posterior aspect of the neck are two tails of the knot, one measuring 4 inches in length and having a frayed end, and the other measuring 17 inches in length with the end tied in multiple loops around the length of a round tan wooden stick, which measures 4.5 inches in length. Okay, they're basically going to talk about that is a deep ligature furrow encircles the entire neck. It is deep. It says a deep ligature. That is disgusting. Okay? This whole thing. I just read something else here that is of interesting, though it is disgusting. The ligature furrow crosses the anterior midline of the neck, just below the laryngeal prominence, approximately at the level of the cricoid cartilage. It is almost completely horizontal with slight upward deviation from the horizontal towards the back of the neck. The midline of the furrow mark on the anterior neck is 8 inches below the top of the head. The midline of the furrow mark on the posterior neck is 6.75 inches below the top of the head. Like, what? This is horrible. Okay, so I'm gonna move down a little bit. Now I'm gonna go into an internal exam. So that means they kind of cut her open to see what kind of issues that there were inside. The anterior chest is well developed. No sternal or rib fractures are identified. The mediastinum. The mediastinal contacts are normally distributed. Okay, so that means that the glands are, everything looks normal in this area. No petechial hemorrhages are seen. The aorta and the remainder of the mediastinal structures are unremarkable. Body cavities. The right and left thoracic cavities contain approximately 5 cc's of straw-colored fluid. The pleural surfaces are smooth and glistening. The pericardial sac contains 3 to 4 cc's of straw-colored fluid, and the epicardium and the pericardium are unremarkable. The abdominal contents are normally distributed and covered by a smooth, glistening serosa. No intra-abdominal accumulation of fluid or blood is seen. The lungs look normal from what I'm seeing here. An occasional scattered subpleural petechial hemorrhage is seen on the surface of each lung. The cut sections of the lungs disclose an intact alveolar architecture with a small amount of watery fluid exuding from the cut surfaces with mild pressure. The heart is of normal. It is normal. There are scattered subepicardial petechial hemorrhages over the anterior surface of the heart. The coronary arteries are normal in their distribution and contain no evidence of anything. So there's no evidence of fibrosis or infarction. There's no vegetation or thrombosis. So basically her heart looks okay. The aorta is patent through its course and are in its major branches. There's nothing seen. So basically there's nothing wrong with the aorta and the vena cava. Those are important. Spleen is finely wrinkled purple capsule. I guess that's what it's supposed to be. There's no abnormalities found. The adrenal glands are of normal size and shape. So basically there's nothing to worry about. Kidneys are normal. Surfaces are smooth. Cut sections disclose an intact cortico-pulmonary architecture. The renal papillae are sharply. So basically the ureters are throughout the bladder. So basically all this looks good. I do hate to do this. But it says here in the genitalia, the upper portions of the vault of her, vaginal canal contain no abnormalities. The prepubescent uterus measures 3 by 1 by 0.8 centimeters and is unremarkable. So it looks like there is nothing wrong with the upper half of her vaginal vault, which that's a good thing. So it looks like now we need to get to the skull. And instead of being a little bit of stuff, it is over a paragraph. Upon reflection on the scalp, there is found to be extensive area of scalp hemorrhage along the right temporal parietal area, extending from the orbital ridge posteriorly all the way to the occipital area. This encompasses an area measuring approximately 7 by 4 inches. This grossly appears to be fresh hemorrhage with no evidence of organization. At the superior extension of this area of hemorrhage is a linear to comminuted skull fracture, which extends from the right occipital to the posterior parietal skull, area forward to the right frontal area across a portion of the skull. There is a huge fracture on the right side of her skull. In this area, the fracture is a roughly rectangular shaped displaced fragment of skull measuring 1 3/4 by 1/2 inch. The hemorrhage and the fracture extend posteriorly, so that means it goes to the back, just past the midline of the occipital area of the skull. This fracture measures approximately 8.5 inches in length. On removal of the skull cap, there is found to be a thin film of subdural hemorrhage measuring approximately 7 to 8 cc's over the surface of the right cerebral hemisphere and extending to the base of the cerebral hemisphere. The 1450 GM brain has a normal overall architecture. Mild narrowing of the sulci and flattening of the gyri are seen. Let's scroll down a little bit. I'm not going to read all of this. There is a thin film of subarachnoid hemorrhage overlying the entire right cerebral hemisphere. Overlying the entire right cerebral hemisphere. That is a horrible, 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 horrible head injury. It takes up the entire section. What? Where was this from the cops? They never mentioned this when they were trying to blame the Ramseys for this. Only very minimal contusion. Let's see where it is present at the tip of the left temporal lobe. At the tip, let's see, this area of contusion, so basically the right side is a lot bigger than the left side with injury. Multiple coronal sections of the cerebral hemispheres, brainstem, and cerebellum disclose no additional abnormalities. Now we're going to get to the neck. Dissection of the neck is performed at the removal of the organs and the brain. The anterior strap musculature of the neck is serially dissected. Multiple sections of the sternocleidomastoid muscle disclose no hemorrhages. Sections of the remainder of the strap musculature of the neck disclose no evidence of hemorrhage. Examination of the thyroid cartilage, cricoid cartilage, and hyoid bone disclose no evidence of fracture or hemorrhage. Multiple cross sections of the tongue disclose no hemorrhage or traumatic injury. The thyroid gland measures and is normal. It measures 2 GM and is normal. So here's what I'm trying to understand. This whole thing with the whole, oh my gosh, she was... I don't get how it can say that her cause of death was strangulation when there is no evidence of hemorrhage in her neck. I have a theory that the head injury caused her passing, and the thing around her neck was postmortem. Sections of vaginal mucosa with smallest fragment representing area of abrasion at 7 position. Okay, so that basically, there's a smallest fragment representing area of abrasion. So that at the very bottom of the autopsy report, it says all the sections contain vascular congestion and focal interstitial chronic inflammation. Now, this is with the vaginal mucosa. The smallest piece of tissue from the 7 position of the vaginal wall / hymen contains epithelial erosion with underlying capillary congestion. A small number of red blood cells is present on the eroded surface and is birefringent foreign material. Acute inflammatory infiltrate is not seen. Okay, so that's disgusting, but there is inflammation inside of her body there, which tells me that something did happen. There's a small amount of blood as well, which we all know that, but the foreign material, it does not necessarily say genetic material. It says foreign material. So we all know that it was not genitals that did this to her. It was an exterior source. This poor girl, whatever happened, whatever legitly happened, I feel bad for her because she had to endure so much pain before her death, and she had to endure possibly posterior trauma to her body. So that means she couldn't even be dead and in peace. They had to disrupt that. Let's talk about the brain. Sections from the areas of contusion disclose disrupted blood vessels of the cortex surrounding hemorrhage. There is no evidence of inflammatory infiltrate or organization of the hemorrhage. Subarachnoid hemorrhage is also identified. Cortical neurons are surrounded by clear halos, as are glial cells. I mean, this is a 9-page autopsy report. It really is. It is 9 pages. And I will be sure to put this in the video somewhere, I'm sure. I feel bad for this girl. 6 years old and go through all this type of trauma. What I want to know is why the police never searched other homes to find blood. Like I said before in this video, I'm changing my answer to possibly the family did it. I think this happened away from our house with the unknown male DNA found around her, which that's what they're claiming, is unknown male DNA. Some man had her out of her house. My theory is it happened during or after that Christmas party they were at. She was bleeding, they were cleaning up the mess, and because she was basically dead or dying, or she was dead, they decided to do things to her afterward that they knew that as soon as it was determined that she has died, they didn't want things to be known. Now, it could be anyone that did this. I would love to see the police department look into where the party was and search. Now, you can clean up blood, but there will always be residue left behind. So, I think that when they find a pile of blood in some other person's house, they're going to figure out who did it. That is my honest, new 2025's answer to this. Find out where she got her head injury, and the rest will be history. You're going to find out who did it. You're going to be able to test the DNA that they found on her, which I guess it was like on her underwear, on her shorts, wherever it was. And on the door of the basement door that they found her in. They are going to find the DNA based on where they find blood, because she had a head injury. She had a head hemorrhage. She had stuff that she was wiping off her shirt, off of her face onto her shirt. That means that there was probably a blood splatter somewhere else. Unless someone did a whole house renovation, there will still be blood found. It is sickening to me that someone could do this to an innocent child. How? Like, this is disgusting. It really is. The fact that this poor girl endured so much. No one that I have ever seen really mentioned much about the head injury. They're all about the thing around her neck. Well, now, I mean, they found some issues with the neck, but it looks, when they cut open her neck, right, they didn't find any hemorrhages in it. The hemorrhages were on the outside of the neck. That tells me she was already either dying or dead when that went around her neck. So I don't get how they can say that she died of strangulation when there's no hemorrhaging inside her neck. I would think. Now, I am not a doctor. I am not a coroner, so I cannot tell you that for sure. But my thought is, if there's no hemorrhaging inside of the neck or mouth or on the tongue, she did not die from strangulation. That was after death. So if I were to change a coroner autopsy report, I would say that the craniocerebral injuries caused her passing with a post-mortem strangulation. That would be my guess. But again, I wasn't there. This happened in 1996. I was a little kid. I mean, JonBenet was older than me. Not by much, but she was older than me. So it is very gross to me that she went through this. Disgusting. I hope that this video does help. Again, it does include information that I've gathered from other things, and it does include the Office of the Boulder County Coroner's Office, the official autopsy report of JonBenet, plus my thoughts on the autopsy report. Goodness gracious. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. I hope that this video does help find some closure. Not that, going through an autopsy report is a great thing to do. But I hope that this video can kind of kickstart a new way to investigate her case and to find the actual person who did it and bring them to justice. If they are a person that is still alive, they can be brought to justice. If they are no longer alive or they are on their deathbed, which some mediums think it was someone they're not going to live for very much longer. If that is the case, they still need to be brought, they still need to be told, we know it was you. And while you are dying, and we cannot bring you to jail for it, she deserves justice. I'm hoping that it's not someone that can't receive justice. I'm hoping it's someone that can have a trial against them. I'm hoping it is someone that can deal with the, what am I trying to say here? I'm hoping it's someone that can do the time for their crime. It has been way too long since this poor girl has had her life tragically ripped from her too young. With this being said, I'm going to sign off. And let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. And I'll see you all next time. Bye.